We are live. Welcome to today's live stream on July 7th, 2018. This is going to be about real estate and geography. Now, good to see who's in the chat today. So far, nobody has shown up yet. Well, we'll give it a few minutes before starting. Actually, I'm going to check to see that my event's live. To check my event. Make sure everything is up to standard. Ooh. Says that I'm alive. So oh, somebody's here. Well, somebody's in. Thank you for joining me. This live stream is an installment. Well, not an installment, but this is going to be about real estate and geography, and how geography is a part of real estate that some people will overlook, but nobody really would think about. Hello, Ari and Drake. But yes, it's a part of real estate that a lot of people do not consider. It's a part of It's a part of real estate that is very important. That's very crucial, and there are so many factors that are in it. For starters, you have to think about if you ever go to your county office, and I did this personally. You ever see these plats? I will show you what a plat looks like. Ugh. Grab this thing. That's what a plat looks like. You can see the little plats. You see this map. That's your plat. It's showing all the properties. This is part of geographic information systems. Sort of how data is stored about every property here on this map. That's what it's showing. And that's one important part of real estate. Yeah, we gotta go back. I have to check to see if my live stream's working properly because it says I'm live, but on the other hand, it's saying on my event that I'm not live. I just have to go to my event, tell everybody that I'm live. Oh, oh, it's showing that I'm live. Awesome. I'm streaming this from my phone, so that's why my computer doesn't work properly in terms of streaming. But yeah, that's the thing about real estate. You know, that's one part of real estate that needs to be understood. You know, you got plats, you got maps. You know, you have to have your property maps. You have to show where your property starts, where your property ends. And then you have to think about other problems, such as consider this. Look at your property. What are some of the things that are near your property? Like, I understand that there's sort of a mini power station not too far away from where I live, and it's considered preferable that people don't live next to power stations or near them. Now, I don't live near a big stream, but big power station, but you know, it's one of those little micro power stations. You don't really want to live near those. You don't. It lowers your property value. But there are other problems you have to contend with. You have to contend with, is your house near a dumping site? Is your house next to an industrial area? And then you have to think about things like zoning. You have to think about tax assessments. You know, how geography plays a big role into that. You know, because people, if people want to figure out whether or not you live there, they can just go look up in a GIS. But what are the big problem? Well, not problems, but other factors like how close are you to a store, dumping site, power station, or how close are you to the sort of amenities of a certain place? There's another thing to consider. If you go out west, you have something known as water rights. You have to buy water rights. Your property could be next to a stream or it could be next to a river. And because of course, sort of the geographic nature of the place, you have to be very, very careful in terms of like how much water you use. Because in some places you're not allowed to collect rainwater. Other places you have to be careful in terms of how you use your stream or your portion of the stream because it could affect someone downstream. And all of that is like real estate, like you have to buy water rights for your property. That's a really big part of it. And here's another way in which geography goes into affecting something like prices. Now, if you go to a place like Omaha, Nebraska, the cost of living there is going to be markedly cheaper than a place such as San Francisco, or it's going to, or you, or you take a place like Charlotte, North Carolina, it's going to be cheaper than, say, San Francisco, but it's not going to be as cheap as some place like Des Moines or Omaha. There are a lot of factors that go into it. Hold up. Ooh. Well, as I was saying, you take a sample of cities like Omaha, San Francisco, Charlotte, Atlanta. You look at a lot of cities, you look at their housing prices. Look at cities like Cleveland. Oh, I agree, it's a great topic. Thank you. You look at a lot of factors to consider. First of all, you have to consider, is this a really hot area that people are moving to, or is this an area that's not attracting that many people? You take a city like San Francisco, which is attracting a lot of people because of the tech industry and for other reasons, such as being a very trendy city. This city is going to be incredibly expensive in terms of its housing costs. And then you have to go look at the actual physical geography of San Francisco itself. You have to think in terms of, you look at the city of San Francisco. Hold up. For a better reference, this is where San Francisco is located. That's San Francisco, and you notice that there's not a whole lot of room in that city. In terms of land area, San Francisco is just the tip of a peninsula. It's very small in area. It's very crowded. You have about 850,000 people crammed in an area that small. About 46 square miles. It's a very small area with a lot of people. Now, this is where geography becomes a matter of supply and demand. The supply, there's not a whole lot of housing for the amount of people that live in San Francisco. Not a whole lot. So your supply is trumped by your demand. No pun intended. Sorry. Your supply is eclipsed by the demand. There is a lot of demand, but not a lot of supply. A lot of it being affected by geography because you have a city that is already built up and has been built up for a very long time. And because it's been built up for a very, very long time, a lot of the housing stock has become very expensive because there's really nowhere to build new housing. You have a very small area, and you're working with an area where there is very little room. You're working with an area where there are height limits on the buildings for several reasons. One, because many people want to see the sunrises and sunsets over the water. Number two, you have to take into consideration San Francisco is located on the San Andreas Fault. And for those who need to, for a quick reminder, San Francisco is part of that Pacific Ring of Fire region. The place gets earthquakes. So you really have to consider what kind of, and you have to consider what happens. But you have to consider the pull factors that are attracting many people to San Francisco. You have to understand a lot of people want to live next to the water. A lot of people want to live in a place that is considered very trendy. A lot of people want to live in a place. A lot of people are pulled there because they work in the software industry. They work in technology. So San Francisco is becoming a major magnet for them. Not to mention other areas around the Bay Area, such as San Jose, Milpitas, Cupertino, Fremont. And just to show you where that is, I gotta zoom in on this. Whoa. But yeah, you got other places on here. San Francisco, San Mateo, Redwood City, Sunnyvale, San Jose, Fremont. Get deeper into Silicon Valley, you got Los Gatos. You have a lot of places that are attracting people here. So with the city of San Francisco, you have to understand we're working with one, physical constraints, and then you have to deal with a lot of pull factors that are bringing people to that city, and it's affecting the prices of real estate. This is why you've got small houses in that city where prices average around $1 million. This is the most expensive city in America to buy a house, mostly because you have the physical constraints, you have the height limit restrictions on buildings, so rent's going up. You have to consider supply and demand affected by the geography. Now, there's more. Let's take, for instance, this city of, ooh, Omaha, Nebraska. In this area, you've got a population of about, the Omaha metropolitan area has a population, I think it has like a metropolitan population of about 900,000 people. The city of Omaha itself, there it is. The city of Omaha itself has about 440,000 people. And then you go further out from Omaha, you look. Located in a very thinly populated area. As you can see, Omaha is located in a very spread out area. It's located in an area where there's really not a lot of geographic constraints for expansion other than the Missouri River. Because you can't go further than the Missouri River, but you can go as far west as you want. And you have to consider Omaha. There are people moving to Omaha, but not in nearly the numbers as, say, a San Francisco or a Seattle or another bustling city. You take a city like Omaha. Omaha, Nebraska, it's going to have cheaper housing. And it's going to have cheaper housing because, number one, Wake the hell up 7. Thank you for tuning in. You take a city like Omaha, Nebraska, which is not really all that large in terms of area. It's not a big magnet for people. And it's located in the Great Plains, so it's spread out. The metropolitan area is spread out. It's not a big magnet for people. Like, people come to the city, people move there. It's not like this. It's not like the area is losing population. It's just not attracting a lot of people. Cool. Yeah, geography is a big part of real estate. And you have to think about what that does to the real estate market in Omaha. The supply and the demand are in a stable environment. There's not that much demand for housing because there are not that many people trying to move there. And when you have to really consider that, when you have to really consider just supply and demand, the cost of living is much lower in terms of, buying a house. And then you have to think about another factor. Why is it that a lot of people don't want to move to Nebraska? Well, you have to think about this. California has long been considered a very trendy state. San Francisco is, it's always looked at as, one of the cooler places to live. Whereas in Nebraska, you look at California, you've got your mountains, your ocean, and that attracts a lot of people out there. A lot of people would rather live there than live in a place that's much flatter, that's located in the middle of the country in the United States, and that has very harsh winters. And I think in some ways the harsh winters are a factor that keep more people from moving to Omaha. And that right there could keep the cost of housing a little further down. Or the fact that, certain industries that exist in other places are not as big in Omaha. And that's sort of the thing about, how that affects the real estate. You have to understand a lot of what goes on in real estate is local. And this goes on to the first law of geography. All things are related, but nearer things are more related than further things. I mentioned Tobler's law of geography. Go check my video out. In fact, after this live stream is over, I'm going to put it in a link in the description box. You click and you click on it and you watch it. Tobler's law of geography. Nearer things are more related than further things. And so a lot of what goes on in real estate in one place is not the same as what goes on in another place. You have so many individual factors that are determined by geography. You have to consider, you take San Francisco, a city that is rugged, a city that's very compact, located next to the water, located on water on three sides. And you have to consider the finance, technology industry, just, a lot of white collar industries that are attracting people and that pay high wages, and that sort of inflates the cost of living. You have to consider the constraints on the land itself. Just not a whole lot of room. There's not really anywhere to build. Newer, it's very hard. It's going to be hard to build new, fresh housing on a very small plot of land like that. So you got a situation where even small houses can cost $1 million. In fact, I got a video about that. I'm going to put that in a link in the description box after this video is done. And then you have to think about Omaha, Nebraska, located on the Great Plains. It's a city that initially attracted people for the cattle industry. And, it's a place where it's the headquarters of ConAgra Foods. If, really think about that. I think they own Hunt's Ketchup, or I think they're a big food company in Omaha. You have Omaha Steaks. You have just all of that there. You have it's also people also have gone there because they're for call center jobs. But and you have Offutt Air Force Base nearby as well. Oh, by the way, here's a little known fact: the bomb that was dropped at Hiroshima, the plane that dropped that bomb around was built in Nebraska, or it was came out of that plane came out of Nebraska. But other than that, you have a very very wide spread out area. There's plenty of room. It's not attracting as many people as other places are. Alright, so you have a situation where the cost of living is lower. And then let's go to a city like Charlotte. There's Charlotte, located in southern central North Carolina. It's basically a big hub in the state of North Carolina. You have other cities in the state like Greensboro and Raleigh. Yeah, the cities Charlotte, Raleigh, I mentioned those areas. Those are areas that have been very fast growing cities over the past 2 decades. Excuse me. Those have been fast growing cities in the 90s and early 2000s because you have a lot of people coming from more expensive cities looking for cheaper places to live. There are people who move there because they want a milder climate to live in, people coming from northern areas. And then you have to think about sort of the industries that continue to take root there. You have, it's a big technology center now. You have, this is what you have here, you know, research development triangle in the North Carolina region. And then you have, well, not in Charlotte specifically, but you have that, you have the universities, you have the banking industry in North Carolina, it's a state that has made a transition from a farming economy to a major technology economy. You know, You had your relatively lower cost of living, and then you have to think about there's more wide open space, so there's more room to build. There's more room to build homes, so it's going to be a little cheaper to build a house. But because it's a place, that has a lot of people that have been moving to it in large numbers, it's not as cheap as it used to be. Prices have risen, and the same thing is happening to Atlanta. Cost of living in Atlanta is going up. People are building further and further out. Excuse me for a moment. Ugh. But yeah, people are building further and further out. People, many places that were once farmland have become houses. As you're seeing it in North Carolina, you're seeing it in Georgia, where I live. The neighborhood where I live in, over 20 years ago, this was a farm. This is a farm, and now it's a subdivision. It's been a subdivision since the 1990s, but before that, it was a farm. And so you had all that growth. People are looking for more land at cheaper prices, so people are moving further out into the suburbs, and then that's it's sort of like you're having a new creation of neighborhoods. You know, that's a big part of real estate right there. It's about what areas are growing, what are the factors in those areas that are growing, and what are the geographic constraints that are affecting prices. In a place like Atlanta or Charlotte, there are not a whole lot of geographic constraints, but those are areas that have been growing really quickly over the past 20 years, 20 25 years, and because of that, it's like, yeah, you don't have the most expensive real estate in America, but the prices have been rising for a while, and it's because there's a supply of housing here, but the demand's going up. Demand's going up, so prices are going up. And then you take another example of real estate and geography. Think about, people want to be near good schools, they want to be close to their work or far away from their work. You know, many people want to look at many people look at the demographics of an area, whether they're thinking whether or not they want to be there. Many people think about certain physical features that are in an area, like a lake or a river. Many people want to live near rivers or lakes because, many people, they like to go fishing. They like, you know, being next to the water. Many people want to be in certain areas. And so when you take that into account, that plays a big role right there in geography and real estate. You have to think about, you have to, in order to understand geography, you have to understand, and in order you understand real estate and geography, you have to understand that a lot of things are local. So much of what goes on is very local, and it changes from place to place. And that, I'm gonna end that. I'm gonna end this stream here, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. If you want to support the channel, I have a link to my Patreon. You can make your Patreon pledges there. And as always, be sure to leave a comment, like, and subscribe.